One of the rights of parenthood is reading stories to your kids, right? If I had a nickel for every time one of my kids said, "Dad, tell me a story," I'd be a rich man. They love stories, and so do we. I think that's one of the main reasons the Bible comes to us in story form. At least 2/3 of it is narrative. It's not a giant handbook of theological points, one by one, but rather it's mainly a collection of stories. And we love some of those stories, right? We love the story of Noah and the ark, the animals coming on 2 by 2 and surviving 40 days and nights of pouring rain. We love the story of the young David slaying the mighty giant Goliath with a single well-placed stone from his slingshot. That's an amazing, triumphal story. We love the story of Moses parting the waters of the Red Sea with his staff, and all the Israelites crossing over safely on dry land while the Egyptian chariots drown as the waters come back together. That's an incredible story. There's a tiny story in the Old Testament, a book that's tucked away between the big books. It's called Ruth, and you can almost pass right over it. It's a somewhat obscure story, and it doesn't grab our attention the way that the stories about David and Moses do. It's a story of very ordinary people, the story of two widows and a farmer, basically. And spoiler alert, there are no miracles in this story, there are no dramatic encounters. It's a very ordinary story about very ordinary people. And it begins on a very pessimistic note. There's a family living in Israel, but they have to leave because of a famine. Think about how awful that is. There's no food, and you have to leave your home. So they leave and go away to a place called Moab. And in Moab, the husband of this family, the father figure, he dies. And over time, the two sons marry foreign women, but over time, both of them die. And so now all that's left is Naomi and her two daughters-in-law. She's all alone. The whole family has disappeared. That's how the story begins. And it's a sad start to this story. But two things to hang on to as you read through the book of Ruth. Do that this week. It's about a 10-minute read. It's super easy. What the two things that emerge are, number one, you see that our choices really do matter. The choices these ordinary people make to love one another and support each other and be kind to one another, they end up having a ripple effect across time that impacts generations upon generations after them. The second thing that emerges is that we can trust the storyteller, God, that he is ultimately telling a good story about our lives. And even though there were some awful chapters, some very difficult tragedies we endure, we can trust the storyteller. So do that with me this week. Amen.